On the cover of the album, I see a tattoo. Is it a real one, or is it shopped? Whoa. It's a new one or old one?
No, I've had it since 18 years.
And Bono, I read in an interview that you think tattoos are like writing on a toilet wall. These are your words?
No. I was referring, it's in a song on the album called Raised by Wolves. And the character in the song was a friend of mine growing up. Witnessed the car bombing in Dublin. And he survived physically, but mentally he really got a hard time. He triumphed over that, but he ended up a junkie. And post-traumatic stress disorder, I guess is what it is, but they didn't call it that then. And on one occasion while he was out of it with a couple of girls, they used his needle to tattoo their names on him badly, like graffiti on a toilet wall. So that's the line in the song, is about my body's not a canvas, my body's now a toilet wall.
So it's not a tacky thing?
No, it's a beautiful thing, especially that one. You know the thing about Larry's tattoo, which we didn't know until he told us. He told us a long time after the shoot. It's about protection of the innocence. It's one of its meanings. It's a based on a Native American. Is that it?
Yeah, I got it done when he was in the womb. I got that tattoo. It's a Native American. It's for Morning Star. Okay. Which is the and it was put on the cradles of children. So all children in the Pawnee nation had that symbol on their cradles as protection. So that's what it was. So it's just kind of funny that it ends up on that sleeve, and you know.
Can you describe the moment where you first heard the Ramones and realized that you had to leave Dublin?
Well, not leave Dublin, because we never really left Dublin. But you mean the spiritually that your life
travel and
turned upside down. We went to see them in '78. They came to the Dublin play. We'd no tickets. We had no money to buy tickets. But one of our friends had a ticket, and he went in and he let us in through an exit. So we only saw half the show. We stole into it, and we were Ramones fans from the beginning, and just it was a way into songwriting as well, because it was so simple. Because before that, everything had gotten very virtuoso. It's a bit like it is now, very prog rock. Everyone's very heady and very thing, and they were like, "What's on your mind? Give us the tune. Give me 4 chords, 3, 2, doesn't matter." And it was liberation. It really was. It was like, it was a get out of jail. So and it ended up being the thing that took us, as you say, all over the world. It was our get out of jail free card, and we thanked him. Got to know him a bit. He used to come to see our shows in the early days and later on. And in fact, Joey, after he passed, his family got in touch with us to say that the last song he heard before he left his mortal coil was a U2 song called "In a Little While," from All That You Can't Leave Behind, and that was very, very touching. Of course, there was people on the internet then saying, "Oh, they killed him. U2 killed him. They killed him."
And who was it to make this album so very personal?
The idea, certainly from the beginning, from Bono's point of view, there was always a sense of trying to find a place. Where is this? Every album has a location, and I know for Bono we were sort of trying to find what that location was, and there was always references to where we came from, but it wasn't in focus. And I know that there was a conversation that you had with Jimmy Iovine that just seemed to really put everything in perspective, and that didn't come until it was kind of slightly later on, wasn't it?
It was sort of halfway through the process, maybe 2/3 through the process. Jimmy Iovine was discovered by John Lennon. He was his tea boy, and became a good friend of John's. So he, the John Lennon school of songwriting is, you pull open your chest and you let your heart spill out onto the page. And Jimmy said to me, he knew what our aspirations were for the album. He said, the person you have to be to write these songs, to make this album, is a long way from where you live. And I'm like, what do you mean? I have a nice house? Is that what you mean? He says, no, it's not about that. It's about, are you ready to go to the place, that other place, the place that you started out? Ask yourself, why? Why did you want to do this in the first place? Are you ready to ask hard questions about your motivations? And are you ready to, with the band, your bandmates, are you ready to fight for things again? Because as you get older, people, they step around each other a bit. Whereas our music, it comes out of a lot of, struggle and fights, even with each other. Are you ready to do that? And I was like, ooh.
There's a lot of fights in the band then?
We used to just, the early days it was hilarious. By the way, one thing, this is true. In a rehearsal, a producer was going to come around to get us our first TV show in Ireland when we were kids. He'd heard we wrote our own songs, came round to our rehearsal room to hear them. We'd been fighting all day. Couldn't agree the start of the song, couldn't agree the end of the song, couldn't agree the middle of the song. It was like, and we're like, yo. And next thing, the knock on the door, and we're like, wow, what are we going to play? We can't agree on anything. So he comes in, he says, I hear you've written some songs. Would you play one for me? And so we played him Glad to See You Go by the Ramones. And he said, you wrote that? And we said, yeah, we wrote that. And we got the TV show and then played one of our songs. But struggling, fighting with each other it's not that way now. But all of us put a lot of ourselves into this. And the question, the question is like, are you ready? Are you ready to do that? We went there for this one.
In 2009, you released No Line on the Horizon. It took you 5.5 years to release this album. The largest gap between studio album in your career. How come?
2 albums.
Yeah, it's a lot of music, a lot of ideas.
We've Songs of Experience. We have another album coming, which is nearly complete.
And also it on previous albums we've had, Flood, Steve Lillywhite, Daniel Lenoir, Brian Eno. That's a producer per band member, So this time around, we started out with Brian Burton. Then we didn't finish on time, and Brian had to go off. He had other commitments, and then he came back, and so we needed more time. We needed to figure some songwriting things out. And we realized as we were making this record, there were lots of ideas. We just couldn't complete them. We realized that we weren't as good at this as we'd hoped, and that maybe we need to recalibrate a little. So there was a lot of toing and froing, and songs that started out in 4 years ago, in the last month, were re-recorded, revisited, and so there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on.
Songwriting, we approached songwriting in a different way, because a lot of our songs, U2 songs, came out of experimentation and improvising in studios, not written on a piano or an acoustic guitar. But we thought, well, the thing that's the biggest challenge for us, the thing we haven't thought about before, is writing like that, in that way. And
is that a new experience then?
It's not how mad is that though? It's like we started writing songs like you're supposed to, age 40 something, and but we're playing this. So that's why on the physical release, the one that you have there's acoustic versions of the songs, because a lot of U2 songs don't work on acoustic guitar, and some of them do, but not a lot. And Rick Rubin also was around saying, what it would be like to strip everything right back and just live off the song. Because in the end, he says, you know, songs are the only thing that live on. They're the only thing. People even these days don't even know who the band they're listening to, but if the song connects. So we think we believe it's some of our best songwriting, and that was the challenge. And it, as Larry said, it was humbling because we had a lot to learn.
You just told me about the Raised by Wolf thing. How did you guys cope with this terror all the time?
70s Dublin.
Yeah, I mean, it was 50 miles up the road, and you know the reference in Raised by Wolves is, you know, a car bombing in Dublin, and there was another one in a place called Monaghan, and so we felt it. It was close, and there was always the threat of it spilling into Southern Ireland, and there was a lot of support for the war, you know. And so everyone, there was a sense of danger, not always physical, but there was always a sense of danger. People were on edge, expecting that we could have had a civil war or whatever. There was just that sort of, people were, there was kind of electricity, and also economically, it was rough. It was a tough period of time to be around in Ireland.
Yeah, there was 3 bombs were timed to go off at 5:30 on a Friday night in Dublin, and on any other Friday night I would have been at the site of one of those bombs, because I used to go into this record store every Friday. And I cycled to school that day. So
There was a bus strike actually that day.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, that's why.
Oh dear, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I
had to.
So anyway, I missed it, but one of my friends who lived across Cedarwood Road didn't, as I was telling you about, and it was, you know, you ask yourself these questions. It's just a twist of fate. But is that one of the reasons why I'm obsessed by political violence? I'm always writing about it. I'm obsessed by people who try to turn it around, like whether it's you know, Nelson Mandela or you know, whomever, Martin Luther King, or these. I'm obsessed by non-violence because maybe is that the reason? I don't know, but it was an important year. 74. That same year I lost my mother, you know, in puberty, and I also met my now partner in life. I met Ali when she was 14. I didn't date her till she was 16. You'll be pleased to hear. By the way, the same week I joined you too.
Are you guys reinventing yourselves again? Reinventing?
I don't know if it's that, because, you know, I think some people were expecting us to come out with this, you know, the sonic fireworks and come out with a totally different sound. And it is very different. But the real changes are in perspective, view, and songwriting, and going into the telling of these very personal stories. And, you know, Edge was worried that it would be very self-indulgent, writing in the first person, you know, solipsistic. Yeah. And because it turns out everybody has a street they grew up on. Everybody has the first time they had sex, or the first time they traveled out of their own city to another big city. So he was right to be worried, you know, and but in the end, strangely, it's become quite accessible, I think. We weren't sure it would be so accessible, but he was right to be worried, for sure.
Is this album going back to youth? In a sounding way, in your life, in your opinion?
I think Innocence is you will never be naive again. I can't get back to naivety, but Innocence, you can draw yourself a piece of innocence. You can still yourself in a day, or once a week, or whenever you have time, and you can. I think it's important to find your essence every so often, to be reminded of what it was before the world happened to you. Because when you walk out in the world, you know, you pick up a lot of stuff, but but the person that you really are is still there.
Why did you say sorry to your fans after the Apple thing, the iTunes release?
Actually, I didn't see it like that. I'm working now on the apology for the apology. No, it was this girl on Facebook, and she was upset. And I, of course, don't want to make a girl upset, nice girl upset on Facebook. But it's not an apology. It was the most proud moment, probably, of U2's history, was to get the chance to get our music to all these people. It was incredible. And we know only a tiny, tiny fraction of people didn't like it and found it offensive, because I think there's a automatic download setting, and if you don't read the instructions, they can push things from the cloud. And so it was, the intent from Apple was it was a beautiful thing to pay. These were people, iTunes people, who pay for music. And the gift was from Apple to them. They're a very creative company. They're fighting for people, for musicians, to get paid. And, when we said, can we get our album to, all your iTunes people, they were like, what, you want to give it free? And we said, no, we don't believe in free music. And then they said, so how? I said, you have to pay for it. And it was a modest amount we were paid, but we were paid. And, for a month exclusive.
But how does it work? Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, is he texting you then, or you?
We're talking. They're like, by the way, the Apple, you think of them as a giant, this big giant behemoth. But
it is giant.
Yeah, I know. But if you go into the thing, there's like 4 or 5 people run the show. Like Eddie Q's the music guy. He's like you. He's just talking about what we'll do. And Tim Cook's really clever fellow, and he's never tried, said I'm Steve Jobs. He's bringing creative people around. Johnny Ive, I could be in a band with Johnny Ive. He's kind of like a big edge. And, we're working with them on other things. We're like in the lab trying to figure out how to make the experience of music more interesting, because an MP3 file, surely we can do better than that in the 21st century. People aren't paying for MP3 files anyway. So, look, you can look at this and turn a beautiful thing into an ugly thing, but I don't think there's much point.
Last year you were in Delft, Holland, for the memorial of Prince Friso. Is he your friend, or you guys were friends?
Mabel. Mabel's another activist. I've known her for years. I've known her when she worked with George Soros, and before she was on The Elders or anything like that. So we're good friends. And I got to know Friso a little bit. He was a beautiful dude. But Mabel was my friend.
Okay. Also the Queen and our King.
Yeah, got to meet them a few times. I like them. You got to see the Dutch get very chilled out royalty. Like they're bicycle riding
and drinking beer.
Yeah, but there's no airs and graces. There's strange, My dad, Irish people, the royalty thing. Our dad, this is the truth. We went to a Pavarotti thing, Edge and myself, and Lady Diana was there, and Edge comes up to me. His mother and father were there, and my father was there because his father was a tenor, my father was a tenor, so that was the idea. And Edge says, would your father like to meet the Princess of Wales? And I knew the answer, but I went and I said to my dad, I said, would you like to meet Lady Diana? What? What are you talking? Royalty? He said, I've royalty. What have royalties? What have they ever done for us, especially Irish people? I said, it's cool, Dad. No, just asking. So we're in the dressing room, and there's a knock at the door, and the door opens, and in walks Diana, and my dad has his back. He's the first person she meets. She turns around and she goes, hello. She's beautiful crimson. No, yellow. It's a yellow dress. She goes, hello, how do you do? How are you? And he goes, very well, thank you. I said to him, how's that? And he goes, wonderful woman, amazing woman. Do you see her eyes? And I look at her, 700 years of problems with Britain. Fixed in 2 seconds. If you ever doubted what the use of a royal family.
My final question, Bono. Almost 10 years ago, we had an interview. I asked you, what's left? You said it was about the thing, you've seen it all, and you've done it all, and you sung it all. And you said to me, all what's left is die in a plane crash. Ooh. Now, 10 years later, you got a new album, went back to your youth. What's left?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I can understand why people might be a little fed up of our face. You know, we've been around a while, and we should have probably done a decent thing, and at least one of us ended up in a gutter, and or collectively, done something dramatic and mythological like die in a plane crash. But we're still here, and as long as we continue to surprise ourselves, and then we think it's worth sharing that with our audience. The moment that stops, we're out of here. May not do the plane. I'd like to avoid the plane crash thing, but I think we might know when to stop.
Yeah, well, spontaneous combustion is always an option as well.
We'll talk about it in about 10 years.
All right. Thanks
for your huge #1 hit in Holland.
Number one in Holland.
Yeah.
Come on. That was, I think, our first #1 was in Holland.
Yeah.
I think so. So that's a big deal.
Thank you.
Really great.